Hi everyone, Leanne here from Jaded Blossom, and it is time for the Jaded Blossom February challenge. Hey, so I am using our Pinecone stencil along with the Pinecone dies, the Noel stamp set, card mat dies, and our Doily dies. And I already ink blended this background using Distress Oxide ink in Rustic Wilderness and Walnut Stain onto Neenah Desert Storm 80-pound cardstock. And now I'm taking some of that same Rustic Wilderness Distress Oxide ink, and I'm using Neenah Desert Storm cardstock in 80 pounds, and I'm just ink blending on top of it because I'll be doing some die cutting today with a few of the dies from the Pinecone die set. And I'm using some Easy C tape, and I'm going to run that through my Mini Empress machine from Anna Griffin. There we go. I'm also using Paper Tray Ink New Leaf cardstock. That's in the upper left. I'm using American Crafts green cardstock. That's in the center. And then on the right, I'm using an iridescent vellum. I'm not even sure where I got it, but it's an iridescent vellum, and I'm going to cut out the doily die with that. So I'm using a bamboo skewer just to pop out all these little dies. Now, if you can guess, our Jaded Blossom challenge for February is use a stencil. So that's what I'm doing this time. So it's lots of fun. So there is that pretty doily die. I just love that. It's going to give me a little nest for my pine cones on the front of my card. So I'm just popping out all of these little dies. And I like to use a bamboo skewer because I find it's a lot gentler than like a piercing tool to do this. So there we go. And I'm just sort of pulling it all out. And I've got different cardstocks like I mentioned. And there we go. So I'm just quickly pulling that all out, and then I will start assembling my card in a second here. That's New Leaf cardstock. So first I have a piece of Paper Tray Ink Scarlet Jewel cardstock cut at 4.25 by 11. And I'm scoring it at 5.5 inches to make an A2 sized vertical card with my Teflon bone folder and my Martha Stewart scoreboard. I'm working on a Stampin' Up! Pad as per usual. And there we go. So it's just kind of a pretty card color. And then I did cut out my ink blended background with our card mat dies. And I'm going to use some ATG tape to stick it down to the front of my card. So there we go. Now I do believe I did the ink blending of this background on the release for this stencil, so you can check that out. But I do some ink blending here in a minute in the exact same way. So now I have a piece of Neenah Desert Storm 80-pound cardstock cut at 4 by 5.25 inches, and I'm going to apply that to the inside of my card just to give myself a spot to write. Now, obviously, I could have written in like a white Jelly Roll pen on the inside, but I always like to finish off the inside of a card. So now I'm pulling out my Misty, and I'm going to do some stamping with some VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. I'm using this stamp set called Noel, and I'm going to stamp Merry Christmas. You'll notice that I cut those two stamps apart, and you can put them back together and they stamp just fine. So, you know, I do this whenever I want to, you know, extend the use of my stamps. Just be careful when you're doing it. And there we go. And I'm also using our label shape dies, and I chose this label shape, and I cut out that same Neenah Desert Storm 80-pound cardstock. And I'm going to stamp another sentiment, Merry and Bright, on the front of this, kind of at an angle, using my VersaFine Claire Nocturne ink. You'll notice that I do have a Waffle Flower grip mat in my Misty that I'm enjoying for, you know, it holds on to my paper, so it makes it easier to stamp. I just, you know, I'm quite liking that. So a couple of times I stamped that. Just be careful, don't press too hard. And I will put that off to the side to dry. So now I'm taking a piece of that same Neenah Desert Storm 80-pound cardstock, and I've got my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station, and I'm going to use this Pinecone stencil. And I'm going to ink blend the background with this I'm stumbling over my words today, with the same Distress Oxide ink. So I'm going to use Walnut Stain and an ink blending brush, and I'm just going to ink blend those. You want to, you know, blend circularly and, you know, clockwise and in the other direction. There we go. And I just find that helps you fill in every crevice of these stencils. You know, if you go in both directions, you won't leave any blank spots. There we go. And I'm kind of heavy-handed when I do this. There you have it. And then next I'm going to pull out the next piece, and I'll line that up in the corner. And I do use the magnets. And I'm pulling out Rustic Wilderness and Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. Just ink blend those leaves. I just love this stencil. It looks so pretty. Especially I find ink blended with Distress Oxide ink onto craft cardstock. I just think it looks so pretty. There we go. Isn't that nice? Now I'm going to put together my little pine cones. So I cut them out using American Crafts dark brown cardstock. This is dark chocolate cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. And then the top layer is American Crafts lighter brown cardstock. I'm just kind of going for, you know, some contrast, right? So the darkest color is American Crafts dark brown cardstock. And then the top layer is American Crafts lighter brown cardstock. That one is actually a bit textured. And then the middle layer is the dark chocolate cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. I've just tried to get three, you know, different colors of brown. So I'm using some Nouveau glue to stick those layers down using my reverse tweezers. And I do weight that down with an acrylic block. And I'm going to do the exact same thing with the small pine cone. And just layer that up. So I love when Jaded Blossom has these challenges. Remember, you're going to want to go and link it up in the blog. There is a button on the right sidebar of the blog that will bring you right to the monthly challenge. And then you can link it up in the bottom there. And we would love to see what you create. So now I'm pulling out Distress ink in ground espresso. It's just a really dark brown. And I'm going to ink blend around the edges with this Ranger blending tool. And I just want to give it a little bit of contrast. So I'm just going around that edge. And there we have it. So kind of fun. And now I'm going to add a 1-inch strip of this stenciled paper to the inside of my card. And I'm going to run it right across the bottom of that Nina Desert Storm layer from side to side. And I will trim off the overhang with a pair of scissors. There you go. And then that will be my simple inside of my card. And then now I'm going to be putting together the outside. So I did cut that label out a couple of times using some craft cardstock that was, you know, in my little bin of scraps, just to give it a little bit more thickness. So I'll glue that together with the Nouveau glue. And then I will weight it down with an acrylic block, just to get it, you know, make sure it dries nice and flat. So I'm pulling out little things from Lucy's cards. These are pearls. It's a glossy berry mix. And I chose them because they match the Paper Tray Ink Scarlet Jewel cardstock well. So I'm going to layer up these two pine cones. And I'm using, like I said, that Nouveau glue. And I will weight it down. And in the meantime, I'm going to stick down these glossy berries onto this pretty little twig that's cut from that pine cone dies. I'm using my Studio Katia embellishment wand to pick them up and some triangle trays. It just makes it easy to flip the rounded part up. And that is actually cut from New Leaf cardstock from Paper Tray Ink. So I'm just adding on these little berries. I tried to choose, I wanted 3 different colors of green on the front of my card. I just found that it, you know, adds a little bit more depth and everything. Okay, so now I'm going to add some HEG tape, onto that label shape. And I'm going to add it to this doily, this iridescent doily that I cut out from vellum. There we go. And I'm just going to add another strip of that HEG tape because it will be hidden by my pine cones. So there we go. I'm just trying to make sure everything sort of layers how I want it to layer on this card front. I'm going to use Stampin' Up! Dimensionals to pop up these little pine cones. And I'll peel off the backs here. And I just you know, I really love this iridescent vellum. It was in my stash. I have no idea where I bought it, although I do believe there are a few companies that sell it, like maybe Lawn Fawn. Don't quote me. You can probably check Simon Says Stamp. They probably sell an iridescent vellum. It's just very pretty. It's like shiny, and it's got like that opaque nature, which is nice. So now I'm going to glue on all of my greenery. So I'm going to add this one to the front of that big pine cone with some of that Nouveau glue. I'm going to tuck these two little evergreen pieces behind the pine cones, sort of going in opposite directions, right? And I'm just gluing the bottom parts of these and slipping them behind my pine cones. There we go. And I'm going to layer this one on top of those using some Nouveau glue. And then that way I will have this sort of contrasting green on top of it with these little berries. I just think it looks really pretty. There we go. And I do weight it down with an acrylic block while I glue these two other little greenery pieces together. And I'm going to tuck those underneath my pine cones as well. Kind of layering it so it kind of goes over top of the sentiment a slight bit, but doesn't hide the sentiment. So I'm just sort of tucking those in on the side there. And how pretty is that? And now I'm going to add a few of these little things from Lucy's Cards, Pearls Glossy Berry Mix. That's a big mouthful, right? I'm going to add a few more of these berries just for a little bit more shine. So I just think this is really pretty, and it will go in my card stash for Christmas for next year, or for this year. I guess it's this year's Christmas, right? We're in 2024 now, but next Christmas, I guess you want to say. So I like to make Christmas cards all year long for Christmas, and that way I have enough to hand out. And that was my plan. So thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to hop on over to the Jaded Blossom blog, be inspired by the team, possibly join in on this challenge, the Jaded Blossom store, to get your hands on these amazing products. And thank you as always for watching my videos. I really appreciate it. And make sure you come back again soon. Bye, everybody.